Today, in another episode of Insight belonging to the CERN miniseries, Professor Marumi Kado, the Deputy Spokesperson of Atlas and also the newly named Director of the Max-Planck Insititute for Physics, speaks with admirable honesty about his successful word line in physics. Tune in, and I guarantee you that if you didn't want to go to CERN before, you will now.
You're listening to Insight, the University of St. Andrews Physics Society's podcast. I'm your host, Veronika Sedláková. Join us as we journey through the lives of academics, discovering their passions, inspiration, and motivation. Hello everyone, today's interview is with Professor Marumi Kado. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I will go straight to the first question. Could you please tell us what is your current position here in CERN and what does it entail?
Okay, so my current position is Deputy Spokesperson. So what it entails is to support in all possible ways Spokesperson of the Atlas experiment. So I'm a Deputy Spokesperson of the Atlas experiment.
Mm-hmm. What does your role involve? What do you do? Or is it...
Okay, so my role as a Deputy Spokesperson, there are two Deputy Spokespersons in Atlas, and we try to cover different areas of the management of the experiment. So the experiment, just in a few words, it's a big collaboration. Atlas, it has over 5,000 members and 3,000 signing authors. And so my role is to support the spokesperson in areas of physics, computing, software, trigger, and some other aspects. And we try to cover between the two deputy spokespersons all the aspects of the collaboration.
See, I'm looking forward to asking more about it. So in the meanwhile, though, what is the path that led you to this? How did you come here to Building 40, your own office in CERN?
Oh, this is a very long story.
I have plenty of time.
Okay, so of course, so what led me to the position is a series of things. I mean, so being deputy spokesperson is the choice of the spokesperson. The spokesperson is the person I know since a long time, Andreas Hauke, and we've worked together in several occasions. We've been physics coordinators together in the past between 2014 and 2016, and this is also a fairly visible role in the collaboration. And we I suppose. So of course, for me, it's always an immense pleasure to work with Andreas, and I suppose he also, to some extent, appreciated our collaboration and decided to ask him to serve as a deputy spokesperson. I mean, the path that leads to this type of position is a series,
So your background is definitely physics, right? You gave a lecture series to the summer students of. You studied physics, I suppose.
Yes.
And where was this? If you can
of course.
tell our listeners.
Well, in France, I studied in France. I was born and raised in France. My name doesn't say that, but I was born and raised in France. And in France, actually, the way to studying physics, often your path crosses also engineering school. So I went through this. And I was always very passionate about maths and physics, and got to be a CERN summer student in 1994. It's a long time ago. This for sure was a decisive moment to decide to come to CERN and try to continue in physics and in particle physics. This is absolutely certain. Coming as a CERN summer student back in 94. And since then, it's been one thing leads to the other. I had strictly no idea that the path would be so long and nice, but it went well. It's so after summer studentship, I went through my master's degree. I graduated both engineering student and a physics student, and then I went on a PhD student in physics at the University of Paris. And then Paris 6 to be precise. And then I went on. I was first a fellow at CERN. Then I was a postdoc in Berkeley, and I was hired by CNRS. My first permanent position, and then I became professor in Rome more recently.
I see. Okay. Well, that's a that's a very nice story. You mentioned you mentioned France, and then
Yes.
here CERN is sort of France and Switzerland at the same time,
Yes.
right? You were in America,
Yes.
you said, and well, since you were a professor in Rome, did you ever live in, or have you ever lived in Rome?
Yes, I have lived in Rome for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I became professor in Rome in 2016. I do speak Italian. My wife is Italian, and we do speak Italian at home. Also because my mother was Italian. So also my name doesn't tell this story. My name is Japanese because my father was Japanese American, and my mother is Italian. So this is also why this was, of course, an encouragement to go to Italy as a professor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I have lived in Italy for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And just for interest, can you compare those countries that you lived in? As in, like, what was it like? What did you like? What did you not like?
Oh, so yes, I've lived and worked in France, in the US, in Switzerland, in Italy. And it's clear that all the places have very positive aspects and some negative and they differ, of course. but it's very hard to say that one is better than the other, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and there are, very fundamental cultural aspects that are important in all the countries, and cultures are very different between US, France, Italy, and what I know about Japan as well. And this is an aspect that probably has fascinated me the most when I came to CERN, is to see how all the different cultures can work together, and you really learn to respect profoundly the differences in cultures and work efficiently with everybody. And I think this is one of the very fascinating aspects of working at CERN. You have probably also seen this.
Yes, I have. I've noticed, and it's amazing. And we sometimes find almost one cultural difference a day, but it's very enriching and very interesting.
Exactly.
And then that makes it a very interesting place to work as
Yes.
well. So you've been working on the Atlas experiment, right, for a while, right?
Many years, yes.
Yeah. So could you tell us about it a little bit? What is it? What does it do? I assume that many listeners will know, but just in case.
Sure. So Atlas is an experiment, one of what we call general purpose experiments at CERN. There are two of them, Atlas and CMS. And when I'm saying CERN, they're actually experiments on a collider whose name is the LHC, the Large Hadron Collider. And it collides protons, but not only, it also collides heavy ions. So Atlas is one of the experiments that is actually analyzing the data from the collisions of all these types of particles, right? And try to unveil some of the most fundamental secrets of nature. So the Large Hadron Collider is currently the collider, so the machine that's at the frontier in energy and almost at the frontier in intensity as well. But I mean, it's of course the state of the art in terms of fundamental physics. And so Atlas is a very complex apparatus that requires lots of collaborators that work very efficiently together to make it work. And it analyzes the collisions of those particles. So to give you an example, for proton-proton collisions, we have colliding bunches of protons, and we're talking about 100 billions of protons per each of the bunches. The bunches are crossing each other at the experiment center, so what we call the interaction point of the experiment, 40 million times per second. And Atlas is collecting the data of all the particles that are created at the time and at the location of the collision. And then analyze it to try and understand what happened at the time of the collision. And, often we compare the Atlas experiments or collider experiments as very big photo cameras with 100 millions of channels. We will go to billions of channels when we're going to be taking data at the high luminosity LHC project, so in about a decade from now. And and we do this 40 million times per second. It's a very challenging, endeavor, but it has been so far very successful as well.
I see. Well, it is very impressive. I certainly never went to CERN when you could actually go down and see any of the experiments, but while having seen the lectures on the analysis that's involved, that is very. And so we've just started run 3 with a little bit of an interruption now, but LHC is in run 3 period. Is there something that you're hoping to see maybe personally or like in Atlas, like some data, some particles, some more properties?
Of course. So I'm my main area of work is Higgs physics, and in Higgs physics I have plenty of things that I'd love to see. And so we started seeing at run 2 the decays of the Higgs boson into muons, an incredibly important decay channel of the Higgs boson, because you would prove that Higgs boson is coupling to second generation fermions. So this is incredibly interesting. And run 3 could bring a more definitive answer to this question, a very fundamental question. So I'm very much hoping that this will happen. And there's a good confidence that this will happen. And there are many other aspects that are very important. One thing that is important also to know that run 3 is an intermediate step between the first phase of the LHC run 1 and 2 and the high luminosity phase of the LHC. And the amount of data that we'll be gathering is very important. So we will be reaching almost half an autobahn inverse of data at the time and run 3, hopefully. But of course, this is not as much as we will get at the end of the HLHC, where we hope to get 3 inverse autobahns. But it's an incredibly important step because this is going to be a sizable data set with respect to what we have in full. So there are many results that I hope to see really performing very well in Higgs physics. Just to give you a couple of examples. For instance, we could be very close to even start seeing hints maybe of di-Higgs production. Incredibly interesting. And it would be the occasion also to really push analysis to see how far and how precise they could go. And it would be telling us a lot about the splendid physics we can do at the high luminosity LHC. And then in terms, of course, the amount of data that we will get, okay, is probably not sufficient unless we're extremely lucky, to make a completely new discovery. Okay, there are some regions of space where this actually can happen, but it's not likely, given that essentially what we will do is to double the luminosity that we had also at run 2, right? But of course, so then if I had to tell you what would be interesting to see, of course, on the Atlas side would be to see something incredibly unexpected. It would be puzzling, but also extremely significant. And more broadly, the LHC physics program, as we had discussed during the lectures, there are anomalies. So of course, when you take more data, is also the time where you want to confirm or infirm some of the observations that you've made before. And there are significant anomalies that could point to potentially to new physics. So this would be extremely important and interesting. So this is also a program that we try to follow also in Atlas. So these flavor anomalies that we're seeing already in the LHCb data.
Well, fingers crossed. That will be very interesting to follow. I think the next question is, it's one with almost a clear answer, but still I'll ask. So we've just celebrated 10 years of the discovery of the Higgs boson. And so is there anything that we still don't know about it? Or what is it, maybe? Because I suppose there is a lot of things, right?
Absolutely. I mean, so there's a huge amount of things that we don't know about it. The first thing is the analogy that you can make with superconductivity. In superconductivity, so the best way to give an analogy of the Higgs mechanism is to compare it to superconductivity. And you can see the universe as a big superconductor in the end. Okay, this is a very good analogy, in fact, of what the Higgs is actually doing. And in the case of superconductivity, we know the dynamic reason why there is a Higgs-like mechanism, okay, and that is the Cooper pairs, right? In the case of the Higgs, we don't know. We put this by hand. We don't know why it's there. So why should there be, a Higgs there? Is it a composite particle? Is it made of other particles like pairs of electrons in the case of Cooper pairs? Right? This is an incredibly fundamental question. What is the nature? Why do we have to put this by hand? This potential and the Higgs field, right? In the theory work, and of course, then there are other questions related. What is really the shape of the Higgs potential is also incredibly important fundamental question. Or, as I was mentioning before, is the Higgs boson really coupling to all the generations of the fermions as we expect to do, right? And if it were not, it would be incredibly interesting as well, because we would have to understand why it does. Okay? So I think there's no doubt that the Higgs, the discovery of the Higgs has been a revolution in particle physics. And we're just, the waters are just starting to become a bit clear about the questions around what lies beyond what we know.
It is very fascinating to watch this and to hear everything about this. And, well, maybe coming back to Atlas a little bit, there are many stages between the collision happening and the data being analyzed by a person or programmed for us to see that there was this Higgs boson coupling to this and that. So can you describe that a little bit, like the journey from the data to us having a discovery of this particular property?
Okay. Yeah, so it's a complex journey. This is why it is a complex apparatus. So from the start of the collision, you have particles that are flying through the detectors, and those particles some of them are charged, some of them are neutral. Okay, but in the end, you're always looking for the signals that these particles are deposited in the detectors, and typically those signals are ionization signals or light emission signals, right? And these signals are always analog signals. Okay, so small recurrence, right? That need to be amplified and then read out. But this occurs, as we said at the beginning, it occurs 40 million times, almost 40, actually, to be more precise, about 30 million times per second. Okay, and then you have to store all this information into small memories everywhere, and then you have to collect it, because we cannot read out and store all these 30 million events per second. We can store only about 2,000 more, 2,000 events per second currently. So and we will go further than that, of course. But so out of these events, so it means 2,000 events per second. So it means that you need to be able to actually read them out, store them, and once they're stored, then you need to reconstruct them. So the journey can be very fast, because most of these events you will reconstruct immediately after, meaning that you will go through the process of being treated by our computers and reconstruct the signals and match the signals from a given channel in the detector to the geometry, and then try to reconstruct out of it, for instance, a track of a charged particle or clusters in calorimeters, and this can take some time. Okay, but what really takes time is that you take the data, you reconstruct it first fast, then you analyze it to have calibration of it, and then you rerun the reconstruction once you have a calibration. Okay, and this takes a couple of days. Okay, so and once this is done, then you can reanalyze the data again, and once you gather a larger amount of data, then you refine those calibrations. So the alignment, for instance, of the detector, all the calibration concepts of the detector, and then you rerun the whole thing again. So in the end, to the final, if you want the final perfectly calibrated data, you can get a long time. It can take years and full reprocessing of it.
I see. That's a long journey.
Right. But it all depends what you call an event. Is it only the signals that come out of the detector, or is it the data that you've reconstructed and put together as what we call a reconstructed event? So meaning you can say that all the signals add together to be an electron, or all the signals add together to be a muon or a photon, and so on and so forth. And in this case, it's a bit long.
I see. So, well, now speaking about maybe now a different collider, I'm wondering, a big topic in CERN currently is the FCC, the Future Circular Collider. Are you a fan of it? Do you want to see it happen?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course. I mean, the FCC would be an incredible step forward in the questions we're asking ourselves currently. So yes, of course, I'm a big fan, and I would love to see it. Of course, I also fully acknowledge the immense challenges of such a collider. The current world situation is hard. It's hard for many reasons.
Yes.
But yeah, of course, it would be an incredible project.
It is. Yeah. Hopefully, it will happen for the physics. And sometimes I hear questions about, will it give us that much advantage in physics? So do you think it will? I mean, you know, right?
So these are these are questions always, what do you call and how you quantify the advantage or what the advancement that you expect. In the case, so this is where maybe we're seeing the problem in not the perfect way. If we always try to seek for all guaranteed deliverables and we try to stick to deliverables only, then we see the project as measured by a potential that is not given the full picture. In some sense, it is clear that this machine is going to be answering some of the most fundamental questions. Whether this is going to really make us understand what's beyond the big question, okay, or not. What we know is that we will be learning immensely, on these fundamental questions that we ask, and this is the only machine, so one of the potential future machines that can answer the question. So yeah, I wouldn't say, do I believe in the potential? Of course I believe in the potential. It has an immense potential. But do I believe that it's going to make a discovery of something really breaking new? I don't know.
Of course, yes, I see. Yeah, and you already mentioned the challenges of the current world. Like, we are in a crazy situation when CERN needs to go into shutdown or a break to save electricity, which I don't know, who would ever imagine this would happen?
Yeah, no, of course. This is the carbon footprint of such immense projects. These are big and important questions that we need to answer. So not only is it an incredibly technical challenge, a scientific challenge, but we're adding more and more challenges as we go along. But
the more we think about it. No. Speaking about the future of particle physics, do you have some expectations what would happen in the field in the next years or maybe decades, since this is not very, I don't want to say fast moving, but many experiments take time. And is there something that you think some people expect but you think it's improbable?
So there are many avenues. It's a field that's incredibly lively. So you work on beam physics. It's an extremely interesting field. There are many new ideas. Many ideas have blossomed recently. Not even recently, but there are many ideas. And of course, as you say, all these projects can take huge amounts of time. There are many brilliant ideas about muon colliders, about new accelerating techniques. These for these two extremely interesting avenues, it's very hard to see how they can concretely become collider physics experiments in a reasonably rapid future. but those would be incredibly interesting. Breakthroughs can happen, but they would be necessary in these two areas for us to really think that this could become collider physics approaches for future projects. But otherwise, in the field, it seems to move slowly, but it doesn't. When I was a student, my particle physics professor gave us a list of things that we didn't know. But already then, in 1994, the feeling was we understood huge amount. We had almost everything, even the top quark. Right? We didn't have the Higgs boson. We didn't have a complete proof of neutrinos having masses. We didn't have all the amazing results on B physics and on CP violation. And there was a long list of things, and we hadn't seen the tau neutrino, things like that. So the list was long. And really, I didn't think we would have answered, on all of these questions 30 years afterwards. But in 30 years, the number of answers we got to these incredibly fundamental questions is huge. And probably the discovery of the Higgs boson is, certainly on the top of the list. But you have all these other answers which are incredible. And we're talking about now having answers on CP violation in the neutrino sector. We're talking about really understanding the hierarchy in the masses of neutrinos. These are fundamental, incredibly important questions. So no. The field is very, very lively. And also, if you look at the LHC physics, is incredibly not only lively but broad. Each search for new physics is trying to tackle very specific questions that are that are models that took years to build. And these are, of course, extremely thoughtful models, right? When we talk about supersymmetry, or talk about searching for models with extra dimensions, or so all these are extremely thoughtful models, and it's not easy to figure out models that are compatible with everything else that has been observed so far, okay, and then predict new things to be observed. So all these are fundamental questions. So saying that, even having excluded supersymmetry, or excluded many incarnations of supersymmetry so far, is a huge result of the LHC. Okay, this has really completely changed the way theories are, or the particle physics is thinking about physics beyond the standard model.
I must say, I'm looking forward to seeing the list we're getting now just being slowly ticked.
Right.
It will be incredible to watch. And it's actually very encouraging to hear you speak about this. So moving away from physics for a little bit, if you weren't a physicist, do you have an idea of what would you do?
Pragmatically, the particle physics, could I be another type of physics, or it doesn't count? No, I've been hesitating a lot during my studies, and this is something I suppose is very natural, especially in a system like in French system where you study many things as in engineering studies and math studies. Of course, initially I was passionate about math, even more than physics, but then of course this has changed a lot. So maths would be fantastic, of course.
So mathematician then?
No, I don't know. It was, of course, no. So math was certainly one aspect that I liked a lot. I also realized fairly early in my studies that I was not as gifted as some people I knew at the time who were incredibly strong in the field. And but this is not what guided my choice, really. I shifted towards physics fairly early, maybe the first year of my studies. No, it's hard to picture yourself as anything else than what you've become. But it's true that when you're starting your studies, you envisage so many things. I had a little bit studied music when I was young as well, and probably my parents wanted me to do well in music more than in science. But okay. So they pushed me a lot there, but I think
like
really,
you push back.
I think my gifts pushed back for me. I liked it very much, but also there you probably need to be really gifted.
Well, I think many people can relate. But that is very interesting. Yeah, I always. This is one of my favorite questions, if I can be honest, because it's always interesting to hear what else people do, right? And so I just want to make sure you teach at the University of Rome.
Yes.
Is that right? Yes. Okay.
Well, not at the moment, but I have.
Okay. Yes. I just wanted to make sure because, as I said, I wanted to. Yeah, so I was trying to find something, and I was not sure if it's that you are sent here by the university or you're working for them and working for CERN. How does it work?
So when you have positions like this at CERN, you ask the university to be released from your teaching duties. And they very generously allow you to do so.
Okay.
Yes.
And when you taught then, did you enjoy it, or was it more like a sacrifice to physics?
No, I mean both.
Okay. Okay.
I enjoyed it immensely. In fact, and this is interesting because before I did not have a teaching position at CNRS. So for many years I did not teach. And then it was a complete shock, of course, starting teaching in a sort of at an old age. But it was an incredible joy to it. For many reasons. For many reasons. I mean, you appreciate many aspects that you could not see when you're a student. not only the fact that of course, that I've learned hugely about all the fundamentals that I studied when I was a student. I also appreciated, how difficult also studying is when you teach, because you have huge expectation in one specific course, but I did teach only 2 classes, right? I mean, but students have many more classes to study at the same time. Yeah, you appreciate a lot about this. But of course, most importantly, is to hopefully succeed, to interest the student and bring something.
So to inspire and to make them interested in the field.
Yeah, I probably failed completely, but nevertheless, I mean, this is sort of a hope. You hope that something did well, go well, but I don't know.
I'm sure it was the case. Yes. And do you have any hobbies outside of physics or work?
Work doesn't leave you that much time, but I did play music when I was young, and I kept a little bit, very very little. I don't do this sufficiently, for sure. I love sports. So I do this also a little bit, but I don't have strong hobbies, and also I have a family, and I really want to do a sufficient amount of time with them, so that leaves. I suppose this is a time of life where you don't have that much time for hobbies. Probably later. Before, for sure, I had much more time for that. At the moment, I have to say, this is really compressed. but
I see. Yeah. Well, I mean, family is the priority, right? And it's incredible.
Yes.
Let's go to a round of what we call the quick fire questions. So the answers would typically be quite short, but obviously feel free to elaborate.
Sure.
So, what is your favorite particle?
Okay, so this is an easy one. Is the Higgs boson. I've been working on this since my PhD, so which was a long time ago.
Okay, this was an easy question then.
Yeah.
What was your favorite meal then?
So I'm passionate about Indian cuisine.
I share that. That is so nice.
I really love it. So I would say a good Indian dinner or lunch.
Okay, I see. I can relate. It is great.
And this is actually also one of my hobbies to some extent, which I don't do sufficiently, but I'd like to try.
Cook Indian cuisine.
Yes, I try. Also there, I suppose I'm failing, but
it's the effort that counts, and I'm sure it must be great. And is there a place what is the place that you traveled that you like the most, that you like to think about?
Gosh, so is there only one? I don't have one specific. It changes during time of year. I mean, so it depends.
And to name a few then?
To name a few, I mean, I love the mountains, and any place in the mountains. I love the sea, and I just came back from Greece, and I cannot not say that the Naxos Island is one of my favorite places. For sure, but there are so many incredible places.
I can imagine, It's amazing to travel and to see them all, right?
But one of my favorite places, I have to say, is exactly here.
Okay.
So, I mean, CERN, I would say, is probably, whenever I'm away from CERN, is one of the favorite places to come to.
That is amazing. And you're right, it is a very special place with a very special and amazing atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, it's also lovely surroundings, really great.
Oh, yeah. You have a beautiful view, to be honest. It's very, very, very nice. Can see a lot. And this is usually a tricky one. What's your favorite music genre and a favorite song?
So this has changed a lot across the years. It has changed hugely across the years. But since a long time, I love jazz music. When I was a kid, when I was studying classical music, but jazz is fantastic.
Yes. And if you were to name one song?
No, I really can't.
I know, that's why it's a tricky one.
I mean, it's hard to just one, especially in jazz, you know.
Yes. What I like to do at this point of the interview, I like to play like a little bit of that song. So even if it were not your favorite song, then one song that I should play at this point of the interview.
Okay. I would say maybe. It's funny because what comes to mind is only what I listened to yesterday night. It's Oscar Peterson. I love Oscar Peterson, for instance. But it's an old. I mean maybe something that would resonate more with the young people.
No.
Jacob Collier, I like a lot. But Oscar Peterson. Sea Jam Blues, something like that, or I don't know. I mean, I play a little bit, very badly, very badly the piano, and he's a pianist, and he's a fantastic pianist.
Was it Sea Blues? Or?
Sea Jam.
Sea Jam Blues.
It's a very basic tune, but it's a really good way. Okay. But also in jazz they always play standards, and so any good standard. I listen a lot to Brad Meldau, for instance. A very nice one I like of Brad Meldau is the Blackbird. It's actually not a jazz standard; it's a Beatles song, which is very nice.
Interesting.
Yeah. So listen. I mean, you should. So this one is really, really great. Okay. This one is the one that I've listened to a lot.
Now I have a big dilemma of which one to include.
You can choose.
Thank you. Then, do you have a favorite book then?
So one book that has really marked me when I was probably around your age and has sticked a lot is the Brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky. That was fantastic. And then maybe you can say this one. But this one was just an amazing book. It's such a monumental book. But I have so many. Again, I couldn't say that I have one favorite. I mean,
yeah, of course, no, but this one is an influential one.
What I can say for sure is that I'm not reading sufficiently currently. I never have time to do this.
Well, since you have a busy job and a family, then that's understandable.
Right.
Yeah. You sort of mentioned in passing that you know quite a few languages. Which one do you like the most?
Oh.
Or at least I understood from what you were saying. There must be French, there must be Italian, obviously English. I'm not sure about Japanese, right?
Yeah, very little, but a little bit. I couldn't say that I have a preference. They're all different, and they all have their nice aspects, and maybe some of them less nice. I love them all. and also the fact of having learned several languages when you're a kid. I mean, of course, it's a nice thing, but also you don't get to know one as well as really the native speakers that have only one language. But I love them all.
All of them are great. Okay.
Yes.
And is there a sport that you like to do or follow?
So I've never really followed sports. So during the year I play tennis. I try to play tennis a little bit. Also there I'm really bad. I love skiing. So from time to time when I get to read the newspapers, I do pay attention of what's going on in tennis a little bit. I don't follow, sort of the headlines on soccer, not more than World Cup and things like that, which are really fun. I love skiing, but I don't follow skiing whatsoever. So no, I wouldn't say I really follow, and I love water sports, but I don't.
You're in the perfect region for this. We have the Alps or the Jura for skiing. You have the lake for all water sports.
But that's exactly one of the reasons why I love this place.
Okay, I see. And it is great. I love it for that reason as well. Been to the mountains and I swim in the lake every week. I love it so much.
Yeah, this is fantastic.
Anyway, I don't know how we got to the finishing question already, but this is the final one. So feel free to elaborate on this one if you'd like to. And it's a question of what would you like to say to people? Because the majority of listeners are students, undergraduate physics students, mostly. So if you were to say something to them before they start their career in science, is there something they would like to share now? You have the opportunity.
Sure. So maybe one thing that students early in their career don't realize is that it seems incredibly difficult, and it is difficult. So the path to get to permanent positions, tenure positions, is long and very difficult. So entering the academia is difficult. Of course, I have to tell them it's well worth, but it's difficult. But what I want to tell them, certainly something worth knowing, is that if you really try hard, meaning in a very positive way, then things usually turn out well. It's fairly rare that of course that means sometimes compromises. Maybe you will not get the perfect position that you like, but trying hard is important. and it turns out well in general. That's maybe one thing. I wouldn't. All the other stuff is probably very sort of obvious. You have to be humble, respect to what and learn to learn. So this doesn't really matter. But really, the students can get discouraged easy, and they shouldn't. Also, they for sure, to be passionate about entering and try to make academia what you hope it should be, right? And because it's in your hands, it's really all in your hands. So that's incredibly important. All the students. Maybe one thing I would like to tell the students is that they are for sure all our wealth for the future. So we are counting on you. To come and support physics, particle physics, academia in general, which needs really support from society.
Thank you very much. That's a fairly optimistic message. So very nice to hear. Thank you. So thank you for this answer, but also for all the other answers. It was an absolute pleasure to speak to you and an incredible honor. Thank you so much for your time.
Likewise. Thank you.
You've been listening to Insight, the University of St. Andrews Physics Society's podcast. I was your host, Veronika Vašičková. Thanks to our amazing academics for their wonderful insights. To find out more about the podcast and the society, find us on Facebook or Instagram, email us to join the mailing list, or search St. Andrews Physics Society for our website. Goodbye.